Let's see how Redzilla does on this transfer bar for the most recent green machine find. So let's see, get a little aggressive because pull this out. Get a little aggressive and see how it does with Redzilla. Redzilla in the wild. So that was about 2 minutes of Redzilla. And now I'm going to do a little oil and some whatchamacallit, some steel wool, and see how especially this 45 auto can come back to life. I'm going to say that came out exceptionally well. 45 RCBS 45 auto. RCBS 45 auto. Yeah, that cleaned up really nice. All I was doing was testing because I just happened to be doing some bead blasting for the unisaw. So I thought I would bust out this one piece of the 9mm green machine that came with the 45 parts, and again, that cleaned up very nicely. There's pitting that's, it's there, can't get rid of it, but for everything else, it cleaned up really good. Later. Hello, YouTubers. Reloading Bench back with you. That's coffee once again, and as you can see, I have the 9mm green machine apart, and this kind of stuff will clean up really quick with the wire brush. In fact, after I finish this video, I'll spend 5 minutes and this will look great. This one, on the other hand, a little more complicated because these are press fit and I don't feel like yanking them out or trying to get them out. And I was thinking I would use the bead blaster Redzilla and try that, because that's just a nightmare. But I have to do a lot of taping off to protect. And one of the things, I have my soldering iron heat gun here, heating, whatever it's called, is this screws in. And it is stuck. And I have been PB blasting. Yeah, that just does not want to move. I even lathed the pin and put a socket on there and with a piece of steel, and that didn't do it. So yeah, that's just not wanting to move. And I know it screws in because I've had this out on other presses. It just hasn't moved in 40 plus years. It doesn't want to move now. So I'm going to try to use heat. Well, instead of flame, I'm going to use air. And hopefully, I've been soaking these for the last period of time. And hopefully these look good. Bust out some steel wool. See how the plates clean up. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of evaporust. Big fan. Yeah, those look great. Or this looks great. We'll see how the others look. Not really concerned about the underside. Just making sure there's no rust. And I will wipe off the steel wool. I don't need to have the steel wool in the evaporust. But well, maybe I'll show a picture of what I think that's this one. Might be this one. I can't remember. But it's going to go back in the bath for a little bit more. A few more minutes. This one should clean up quite nicely. See the yuckies. Oh yeah. Evapo-Rust to the rescue. Good stuff. Such good stuff. And I would love to dunk this, but one, I don't have that much Evapo-Rust, and two, I don't know what it would do to the old Evapo-Rust. I don't think is harmful to paint like what was the one I was using before Evapo-Rust? Crud Cutter. Yeah, look at that. That's, again, much better condition than it was. And the big one. Again. But Evapo-Rust does leave a weird, if you don't wipe it up right away, it leaves a weird finish. And I'm not talking about on metal, like on the garage floor. And of course that has to drop, because that's how that works. Yeah, that's cleaning up quite nicey. Steel wool, magic stuff. Evapo-Rust, even more magic-y stuff. But again, if you saw what this looked like earlier today, that's a world of difference. That's looking gorgeous. Gorgeous. Another half hour or so in the Evapo-Rust. But yeah, there's no real easy way. I mean, I can do the sides here with the wire wheel. I can probably get this with the wire wheel, but getting in here, that's a little tougher. Little tougher. I mean, the steel wool will take care of this stuff, but it's just hard to get in there. It's a lot of work. Lots of work. So I think I'll tape it off and I will shoot it with the bead blast. But I do want to get this off. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is get this off so that I can slide this out and have less weight and such. But it's in great condition, minus the rust. All right, so back later. So I gave up. I tried heat, I tried force, I just gave up. Wasn't worth it to me. So I'll steel wool this and get rid of, I'll work on that later. Today's focus was, you know, making these, making this, you know, if you look at this now versus the before with the rust, same thing with this. Very easy to make the rust go away. I did not clean up any of the painted area surfaces yet, because again, the focus today was rust. So the plates came out great. I mean, these will look fabulous. That'll go like that, I believe. And this one goes like that, with the springs all back in the little press fit spring holders. Looks great. Looks really, really, really good. And the transfer bar came out very nice as well. Where is that? My bag of supplies, taking everything apart. Transfer bar looks really nice. So let's see. I'll probably clean this up a little more. This was, You know, I don't remember any of the other calibers having these grooves like that, so I hope that's stock, but again, that's stock, so I don't see why anything else wouldn't be as well. And because the spacers aren't in there right now, the fit will be a little janky. There's the little washer spacers that actually it goes like this. And yeah, the beveled edge is forward. And then that's what it'll look like. Really came out nice, especially considering what it looked like prior to today's derusting. Yeah, these machines clean up really, really nice as long as they're not too far gone. And sometimes they are. But I've been lucky enough in my finds that they haven't been bad. So, again, good stuff. So I will put this, I'll continue cleaning. I'll start working on cleaning the paint areas and then put it back together. Not sure I'm going to do anything with a base because I have enough bases, and I have an inline fabrication plate for this as well that I think I showed on one of my conversions. So I am going to make this one work because I do reload 9mm, and this is a cool little old machine. So good stuff. Later. Well, hello YouTubers, Reloading Bench back with you once again, and as you can see, this is technically reloading related content. It may not interest folks just because it's old reloading related content. So I have cleaned up, for the most part, the exposed metal. It's, you know, less rusty. I will now tonight work on cleaning up the painted surfaces so they are less dirty on the three pieces. The third top piece is not shown here. But what I wanted to do is mix two hobbies. So this is reloading related, but I'm going to use the lathe to take this brass bar, and I'm going to make the inserts that go in these three holes. And as you can see, that kind of fits. I don't want anything smaller. And I've probably shown it before on a previous green machine, but there was a packet and all the green machines shipped with, when the dies are installed, let's pull out one of them. Let's go for the decap. So when the die is installed, and this is still a modern thing for certain die manufacturers, and it's set to its correct height or adjusted, and I'm just setting that in there. There was a kit, so the machine would come from the factory like this, with its dies all configured. There would be a brass insert that's maybe that thick, 1/8 of an inch, and that is screwed in all the way to touch the threads, so that when these magic little wonders when these little grub screws, these 3/32 grub screws, are screwed in here to lock the die, the steel from here doesn't press against the thread. It presses against the softer brass. So I'm going to take the lathe and I'm going to cut a bunch of little inserts, and we'll see how that works. Then the rest of the evening will be spent cleaning the green in preparation for touch-up paint. and we'll see how that goes. So the first focus is going to be on the insert. So I'll show the setup. I won't show the cutting because parting and cutting are such a challenge, but considering how small this rod is, how thin it is, shouldn't be a big deal. If anything, I'll probably lose the inserts as they fly off the lathe. So we'll see how that works. More later. Gotta say, mission accomplished. I made a bunch of them. This one was done on the lathe, and it came out great, except for the little nub, which won't matter because as soon as you screw that in, it's done. It came out great. And then all hell broke loose, and I was unable to do any more on the lathe. The lathe is a wonderful tool for somebody who really knows what they're doing, and that would not be me. I'm a hack on my lathe, which I get it to do what I need to do for the most part, but the worst task that I perform on the lathe is parting. I hate parting. I have put together, I don't know if I've published them, so many videos on different parting tools, parting blades, whatnot. But again, there's my nubs. They'll work just fine. But like a lot of what I do, it's a hack. But it's a better hack than not having it. So, you know, I can't complain, but it's just frustrating and irritating when you try to do something on the lathe and it doesn't work as you would hope. And that's, you know, part of this. This is a really thin rod. So the pressure to part, that's a lot of pressure. And depending on how much rod is showing, you know, it's malleable, it bends. It's not steel. So it was challenging. So had to bust out the Dremel and the vise for the remaining handful of whatever those little brass nubs are called. I'm sure there's a cool name for it in the book. I just don't know what it is. But tonight, I did a little bluing on that to dress it up. Tonight will be cleaning, paint cleaning, green cleaning, green paint cleaning. So, let's see, this one was, you know, steel wooled to get the rust to a less destructive state. This, maybe I'll blue. I'll take it out, steel wool, blue it. This will probably need to come off because these are rusty as heck. Clean those out, make those look newish. Again, love these little machines, but they need some love. They need some love, so they will get some love. And this will get polished too. That'll clean up really nicely. All right, that is it for now. I don't think you need to see the cleaning. Next time you see it, it will be cleaner. I was debating whether to bead blast this with the satin or leave it in this format, and I think it looks just fine as is because all of this will get covered by a lot of stuff. These were polished, these rams, or is this the ram? Whatever these collar things are called, whatever these posts are. Again, everything cleaned, oiled. It feels great. At least this stuff does. And this one, not so much yet. But we'll do some green cleaning and try and match some paint with my a lot paint for my restoration jug of paints. And next video update will be whenever. It is time to move on to the next phase of putting some of this together. So it's been touched up so it doesn't look so beat up. Same with this. Actually, same with all of them, for at least on areas that show this gets mounted in. But everything's been cleaned up, oiled, steel wooled, derusted, cleaned, touched up, painted so that it doesn't look as beat up as it did. And the powder control bar, or whatever its official name is, I'm sure that's not its real name. This was in pretty bad shape. It was needed to be re-blued, so I cleaned them up, re-blued them, oiled them, and we will drop this in. Needs to be adjusted, so I'm not going to worry about the perfect fit, at least at this time. Just get it in. Maybe straight is a good thing, so that the all the parts are there. And actually, I think it goes like this. I think the nubs are on the rear, because these are what gets engaged for the powder charge to activate the little dandy powder charge. All right, so we are going to begin assembly. This goes on top here. This will mount back on here. But this will be the area of focus for putting the springs back in. The plates were cleaned. Nothing else was cleaned. So the spacers need to be cleaned. The springs need to be cleaned and polished. And the hardware that goes into all these wonderful holes needs to be cleaned up as well. So that is the next stage of progression as it relates to this press. More to come. Hello, YouTubers. Reloading Bench back with you once again. And as you can see, I'm coming along with putting this bad boy back together. It is not done. It's probably 70% done. It's all cleaned. It's all touched up. It's all, getting there. It needs adjustment. So nothing is adjusted to actually work correctly yet. Obviously missing all the dies and some other components that missing in the sense of just not installed right now, not necessarily missing. But I thought it was kind of funny because last year when I was doing a number of these Green Machine restorations, I think you might have seen one of them where I was using the Lee powder charge or a Lee auto drum charger so that you would have case activated charging as opposed to a manual always on or always off powder charge with the little dandy. And I thought, because when I was doing my primer tube solution, essentially a vertical primer tube, that leaves no room for the little dandy rotor. These rotors, actually. And the person who had this machine, or who got rid of it, did his mod, I'm assuming it's a guy, did their mod on the little dandy so that they could have their vertical tube priming system as opposed to the original priming system. And again, my hack on one of my Green Machines that I put on an inline fab mount worked great with the Hornady primer tube and an RCBS blast shield, which that would work great on this particular model as well. Well, the person who did this, and I'll throw pictures up, they had taken their little dandy rotor and I'm going to say sanded it down, because when the pictures I show right about now, you'll see the sanding marks and whatnot. So I threw that on the lathe and cut, the tiniest amount. And then I took my punch and stamped an 8, and then obviously blued it. And so where he had just a piece of tape and the sanding marks, I made it look a little nicer with the lathe. And again, tried to stamp in a number 8, which it's there. not perfect. But I thought what was funny is, oh, if I F this up, I'll just go buy another number 8 and start all over again. So when I jump online, you know, the normal price of what I would say I'm going to guess less popular rotors are about $15, $14.99. Some of the more popular ones, $20. Looks like the number 8 is the most popular because it's $26. $25.99, I think. Yeah, $26 for this little rotor. And they show 3 for 20 here, but it's not actually 3. It's just the number 5. So less popular, less frequently used, $15. More frequently used, $20. Really popular ones, $25. And it just so happens that when I look at my handy dandy rotor chart, a number 8 puts out 4.2 grains of unique, which is what I reload. So in fact, let me double check that on my press. Hang on one second. Okay, Murphy's Law. I thought I was 4.2. I'm actually 5.1. So this number 8 may not work for me. I will test it and see what happens. But the bluing, the cleanup on the head turned out great on the lathe. And I remember when I was doing my other green machine with the idea of cutting down, because the little dandy rotor is probably that much taller, cutting the rotor down. I found a guy on Craigslist that would do it for, I think he wanted upwards of $100. And I'm thinking to myself, but I also was asking to knurl. Again, not a big deal if you have the lathe. If you have the equipment, it's not a challenging thing. It's for those who don't have the equipment, as I find out. This was in rough shape, really, really rough shape. And now it's in less rough shape because I ended up putting it in my derusting solution. I've got some stuff right here derustifying with evaporust. Essentially, this one's been done. This is the right side of the whatever you call this thing. That needs to be blued. So it's now been derusted for the most part. I'll hit it with some steel wool, and then I will blue it and oil it, which is what this has gone through. So again, this was kind of rough, you know, still not perfect, but a heck of a lot better than what it was. You know, this old stuff is never going to be, you know, original again, but that doesn't mean it needs to be caked with rust and such. So I will screw that in. What's actually funny is with the transfer bar in like this, I'll take the transfer bar out, and then it's easy to rotate this to get the screw all the way in than it is to try and fight with the screw. So I'll do that off camera, but that's that, and that takes care of my little dandy rotor, which also means I need to give the, you know, again, it's not terrible, but it has seen better days. And this is what it actually looks like. So it'll be almost flush mounted, which I think is kind of cool. I mean, there's nothing I'm going to do to turn it. And if I did need to turn it, I could use the back to turn it, because I think about that much sticks out the back. And again, depending, I cut very little. I think it was sticking out about that much. In fact, we'll find out right now, because we can use the screw. Naturally, it won't be the one I need. This one, and this is a little rough too. That needs some work. All right, so that goes in this slot. So we will put this in. There we go. So that's how much it sticks out. And that's cool because when that is sitting on top of the die that has the adapter for here, but for all practical purposes, this is the profile that it would present. There we go. And we have clearance. We have that much clearance, a little more, probably about 1/4 inch or so, maybe a little bit more, 3/8. But again, yeah, somebody had the same idea to shave that down, to go to a different priming system. One of the biggest weaknesses of this particular machine is the priming system. The other challenge, the transfer bar, if you're not supposed to have anything oily around the transfer bar, so this should all be like a dry lube, because if anything gets in here, it clogs it, just like with any progressive press on the shell plate. But the priming system sucked, which was one of the reasons for failure. Priming system. The powder charging system is, it's kind of like the shotgun. You have to turn it on or off because it's all or nothing. It's not case activated. So I have ordered a new version of the Lee auto drum powder measure, which I gotta give Lee credit. They're continuing to innovate, unlike somebody like a Dillon who hasn't touched their powder measure since they did the fail-safe rod that kind of gets in the way depending on how you configure the machine. They're not innovating like others are, and if you look at the catalog, every year Lee comes out with good stuff. So I'm still buying from Lee. For all those who bash Lee, all good stuff. But I'll put this on and I'll show it to you in a minute, and we'll call that a wrap. Cross another task off the list, the never-ending list. So more to come, and we'll see what the next segment looks like later. Hello, YouTubers. I'll call this a useful tip for me that may help you in some of your restoration projects. So I'm going to deal with this primer bar, and this primer bar is activated by a lever in the back and then a spring underneath. This particular spring, and hopefully the camera will focus and you'll see how nasty and rusty that spring is. It looks terrible. We're going to bring that spring back to life very easily. And depending on what I'm trying to do, like when I was doing some of this, they're all oiling now. I try and use a size appropriate container, preferably with a top, because the evapor rust seems to get everywhere. This was, I think, some hot and sour soup from a local Chinese restaurant. Obviously, we know what that was from Kirkland. But again, these are good reusable until they're not good anymore, and we throw them away. This is, like sauces from, wherever. They make great little, I call them rusting cups. So, like for tonight, I just want to worry about this one spring. So I'm going to drop it in here, take my evapor rust, make sure it's covered, cover it, and then tomorrow we'll see how it looks. Back tomorrow. A few moments later. Actually, it's the next day. We're going to see. Let's get some papers because evapor rust always messy. Let's see how beautiful, maybe beautiful is not the right word, how much better this particular piece is going to look after derusting for the evening. See? Evapor rust everywhere. And it leaves a weird coating, like on your fingers or if you drip it on the floor or whatever. Oh, and more. Yeah, look at that. That's just let's get it. Let's put this cap on because Murphy's Law says it will spill. See? Apple rust, as much as I love this stuff, it just seems to get everywhere. I don't care what kind of container you use. This came out exceptionally well. Let me wipe that. I think that came out great. Okay. Love my little magnets for pulling stuff out of the gunk. Okay, so now, step one, we have derusted. So there is no more rusty rust. And again, depending on how well the camera's focusing, I have no clue because it looks finely focused to me as I'm standing behind the screen. But now I will wire wheel it and then I will polish it and then we will see what it looks like. So back in a few. And we will call this restored. That came out, again, I'm not sure how the focus is being handled, but just gorgeous. Looking like a new. It's amazing between the chemicals and the brushes and everything else. It looks beautiful. So that will go. That goes. Where does that hook into? It goes under here. And bingo. I think it goes there. I'm pretty sure it goes there. So now when the handle comes down, spring goes out. I'll double check. I always thought it was straighter, but in any case, this spring looks magnificent. Now, I'll leave it out for right now. Now we will focus on putting these bad boys back on. I'll give them another coat of oil and a last brushing with steel wool, and then they will get installed. Next, back later. So the left and right links are in, and things in theory should operate. Again, things are not super tight. They're bolted on, but not snug fit because I have a lot of adjusting to do with the case feeding, both on this particular transfer bar as well as the plates to make sure they hold the casing in. There's not much to do here other than put the handle in. The handle, the condition of the handle, I'm going to call it splotchy. You know, like but it doesn't look like anybody tried to do anything to it. So it's not like it's been, you know, abused. So this will be an easy cleanup for, I'll probably hit this with steel wool and then I will re-blue it, give it a nice dark finish. But one thing I was noticing, which I thought was so cool, and this is the difference between manufacturing in the 1980s and today. So I don't know if you can read this. It was made in Chicago by DAKA-WA, looks like a B. But the important thing is made in USA. And again, I don't know if that's being picked up by the camera, but that's cool. That right there is just beyond cool. So, and the ball's in great condition. Beautiful. Beautiful, all things considered. I'm not even going to touch this up at all. So I will install this. I might just wipe it down though. I'm going to install this just to see the functionality, and if it functions, I'll bring you back. If it doesn't, we'll see what happens later. All right, so this came out stunning. I'll have to look at the before picture video, but with the bit of rust that it had on, this looks day one fresh. Came up beautiful. Beautiful. And we have functionality. It's not correct functionality, but again, one of the things I love about this press is it's not mounted on anything. It's just on my rubber mat. Let me bring it a little forward so the handle can drop all the way down. The beauty of this press is you can move it around anywhere, and the weight of the press, now obviously depending on how difficult or, the resize, there's a little pressure there. But the point being, this is very easily put any place on a flat surface, which is not something you can do with just about any other progressive press today. You need to mount it to where you've got a lot of overhang and a lot of leverage to be able to operate the press. So everything functions. The two things that will have to be addressed are this particular, whatever it's called, because that's what controls how much this pushes in. So this will need to come out, and I will potentially need to adjust down here how far the transfer bar moves the case. So I'll probably start by putting cases in the front and rear, tightening these down, and then work towards being able to function so that the cases align properly. And then final adjustment will be once the dies are cleaned and the dies are all placed in for what I would call tweaking. So I may put the resizing die in just to see where it lands, because again, right now I'm not getting this over the over right there. So right there is where the primer goes. So this dip, so that shows you how far off. This hole should be right here right now, and it's not. So it's adjustment time, but this is good news. Everything is aligning, functioning, sounds great, feels great, and now it just comes down to making sure it's in the right place. Later. All right, so we are at a stage where things are what I would call initially timed. So that bar was adjusted. This pin was adjusted in terms of how far the transfer bar pushes in. These were initially adjusted to fit the brass. So, from a functioning standpoint, the press operates, primer, bar pushes up. So everything meets, and I'll say initial timing is not dialed in. I'll say it's in the ballpark. Once the dies are in, that's another thing. Plus, having it locked in, as in to an inline fab mount, so that I'm not holding it down and it's not all jerky and all that good stuff. But if we run a little brass, you can see that it's hitting the stations. And it's essentially doing what I would expect it to do at this point of the restoration. And one would hope that with a bullet and all the appropriate weight with a projectile, powder, and primer, that when that bounces, it'll go down. Maybe you need to adjust this a little bit too, but this is a little high for the table, the bench. But again, everything is, it's working. Let me lock the RAM up. It's working like it's supposed to. So off now to mess with the dies and finishing touches with the upper half, and we'll see where this goes. So that's it for now. Hello, YouTubers. We're almost done with this restoration, and handle came out great. Looks very black, very smooth. But I'm running into an issue. Let me leave this up like this. And that is this one die. The seating, or excuse me, the sizing and decapping. It doesn't want to go any further without force than right about there. I get a lot of resistance, and the die isn't even barely through the bottom of the tool head. So I decided it would be good to have, and somebody's saying, oh, that's because you have the little grub screw in there. And no, I don't. See? You can see it all the way in there. So there's no screw there. And my first thought was, you know, maybe there's a little bit of something caught in there, rust, whatever. And that's why I decided to pick this up. And this, from our friends at the forest, is a tap. Hopefully the right size tap. Don't know, maybe I'm making this video in vain and it might not be the right size tap. But the idea, okay, I don't need to cut that open. The idea is to, okay, so I lucked out. Those are 7/8 by 14. Big giant whatever. I should probably take this out as well. Unfortunately, I have connected some things here. I did notice, by the way, 3:30 seconds. I did notice that this grub screw right here was missing. And that screw is one of the screws. And the other, maybe I should have done this off camera. The other, this particular screw that locks the thing that I'm drawing a complete blank on right now goes right in front of this grub screw. So not the best design. You know, you shouldn't have that screw blocking that screw. It should have been offset like this one is. But this screw was missing, so that was a trip to the hardware store earlier today. And the rest of these dies, you know, bottom out without a problem. It's just this first die. So considering the number of dies and turret heads I have for like the Lee, I thought having this kind of tap would be pretty cool. Let's see if it yeah, it definitely feeds. All right, so I will get a wrench. Let's see what I can do with that, and some cutting oil, and I will be back in a few moments. A few moments later. All right, here's my contraption. Looks like 5/8 inch. If we're gonna go, since we're non-metric here, I will put a little cutting oil on all these threads. I will try and reseat this by hand. Again, need to be careful with this one because the last thing I need to do is F up this. All right, so that feels like we're there. So Just like anything else. Cut a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let me put some. Last thing we need is a bunch of shavings, mucking everything up. We are too close to being done. I honestly don't know what happened here because we should not be experiencing, I mean, this is where the dies came out. So, I mean, the die was originally in here all the way. I will clean this off. Let me do it on paper. See if we're getting gunk. Yeah, we're getting some gunk. More cutting. I mean, there's plenty of channel for... it's not like we're cutting a new hole, or we're not cutting new threads. All we're doing is trying to chase what we've got. And quite honestly, it should not be this tight, but it is. So we will deal with that. And I don't know why it's that tight, because like I said, this is where the dies came from. And wow, I'm like more than a half an inch from the bottom, and this should not be this tight. Never had this happen before on a green machine. Never, never, never. Yeah, we're still, which probably explains why. And again, there was nothing abrasive that was done that would, oh wow, this is, you know what? Let me get some gloves. We're using a bit of force. Probably should have taken some of these other dies out, but didn't think we were going to be breaking such ground with this. Okay, we're about a 1/4 inch from the bottom, and that's a lot of resistance. Let's you know what? No. Yeah, wasn't thinking this was going to be so chasing threads. Very interesting. Very interesting. Let's get a little. So what's funny is you can definitely see the impact I'm having, and I'm looking for my brush. Very interesting. Did not think this would be so challenging. Honestly, this is its own little video segment all by itself, or rather, this could have been maybe a standalone video. Never had this happen on the Green Machine Restore. Well, that's a lot of gunk up in there. Yeah, should have done this. Very interesting. Well, we're committed. We are committed. There's no turning back. And that's about as tight as the die should have been able to go in. Get my glove. Wow. Yeah, a lot of resistance right here. A lot of resistance. It feels like cutting a brand new set of threads on a hole that you drilled way too shallow. Holy moly. Yeah, my confidence level not so high right now. Okay, we're right at the bottom, and I'm going to switch this out. I'm going after the big boy. Going after the big boy. 5/8. 5/8. Big boy. Trying to figure out where I can grab. That makes sense. Another glove. Watch me crack the casting. That would be some shit. Well, well, well. All right, I think we've come through all the way. Yeah, probably should have put this in the inline fabrication. Probably should have put it in the inline fab mount so that I've actually got some leverage. But we're going to see what we got. This is my exercise for tonight. Yeah, this would not have been possible with your standard Irwin tap by hand kind of approach. A lot of gunk. Lots and lots of gunk. Let me blow that out. Actually, let me pump up the compressor. Back in a minute. All right, let's swap this paper out for some newness. And let's see what magic we get. All right, so the threads look actually really nice. It's my gunk. I wish there was an easy way to show you the threads. Gee, dude, why don't you just take it off the tripod? There's a lot of muck in this first one. A lot of muck. Okay. One more blow. All right, much better. All right, moment of truth. Let's see how this twists. Okay. Ooh. Wow, we're still... Okay, so it's down, but it's basically where... Yeah, that's still not down far enough. All right, so I will do more, but I will not do it on screen because you probably don't need to see it. So I'm close. I'm just not right there. I'm so close. So close. So I'm going to do more of what you just saw because I've got about that much showing through and I need a little bit more. So back, like, I'm going to be very honest with you. I was quite worried about the amount of force I was using because I didn't, looking for oil, because I didn't want to crack the housing. There's not a lot of material there, and I was worried that I was coming pretty close. So I got it, took it slow and steady wins the race, I guess. So I got about that much of the tap rather, out of here. So now we're going to see how. All right, I'm at the edge now. Could never get this far. Could not even get. This was as close as I was getting. So, for reference, you know, I had 1.5 inches of the die sticking up. So now, all right, I can go as low as I want because this is what locks the die. So we don't have any wiggle, and let me unlock this. And let's see how much. Bring this forward a little bit. So this is all the way down. I'm going to. It also looks like the pin is bent slightly. All right, we're going to see if that will allow us to resize. Deprime, and we've got our primer catcher there. So we're going to see. I have no leverage, so let's see, where can I hold? Yeah, I don't like the way that's feeling. I don't understand why we're stuck. Something ain't goodage. Oh, I bet you because the primer. Haha, I know why we're probably stuck. Because the primer. Oh no. Okay, it didn't drop. So let's move that down a little more. Definitely a few moments later. So, if you recall, the die was only going in, had about 1.5 inches sticking up. So now I'm at roughly 7/8, a little less than 7/8. So I tinkered and I found out what the problem was. And I'm going to take this nub, because the only die right now that is adjusted is this one. Oh, and I don't have my shitski. I don't have my little my little brass tips, so I will go get those, but not right now. So for the sake of testing, we're gonna say that we're at the RCBS, so the 83 is at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I have 3 full threads showing. So I think I have this adjusted, and the problem was the primer. One, I didn't have the die low enough, so the decapping pin was not pushing the primer all the way out. And two, I had to adjust the stop on this side so that when the the decapping pin was over the hole, it was centered. So I'll call that a timing adjustment. And here's a piece of unprocessed brass. And again, because I don't have anything holding this down, you heard the primer drop. And there is my resized, not belled, because I don't have the powder flare in there, but that's working. So we'll do one more, and we will call it an evening. All right, so we have made progress. This die is adjusted. I'll go find my brass little thingy bobs, and I'll put that one in, and we will call that good. So, and I'll put this back together. But this was the only die that gave me a problem. The rest of the dies all threaded in, and you know, we're reasonable in terms of like this is bottoming out. So I don't really understand, because you know, all I did was take that die out, just like I took these dies out. Didn't really do anything. Nothing destructive, unless, you know, through all my cleaning process, too much gunk got in there. But again, I chased that out with air, oil, you name it. You name it. I chased it out with a lot of stuff. So, all right, we're done for tonight. Take care. So this is a keeper for, you know, whether it's this or, because every other 95+% of my dies are 7/8 by 14. So that's a keeper for what it was, and a lifesaver, because there would be no way to twist. Let me put that back to where it was. There would be no way to get that in without that. So, nighty-night. Hello, YouTubers. Reloading Bench back with you again. And this is another green machine update. Little tidying up the loose ends here. When I picked this machine up, it had these aftermarket clear tubes. They were originally green. And these are good tubes. They're very thick. They're not like the very, very thin walled reloading tubes that you see in a lot of the case feeders. So these are heavy duty. And they fit in this rotating tube holder. Unfortunately, my green machine only came with one of these. These are identical for the top and the bottom, and it only came with the bottom. So the top was nowhere to be found. It was not included, so it wasn't an issue of not to be found. And when you just have the base locked in, there's nothing holding these, you know, unless you want to do some rubber bandy kind of solution, which I didn't want to do. So I went online, of course, and I saw this for like 10 bucks. I think it was $8 plus $2 shipping, so 10 bucks. And I thought, sweet, let me grab that. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit. This outside diameter is 0.650, and this inside diameter is 0.570. So no fit. You know, then I went back and I looked to see if the seller on eBay had dimensions on there, and I just overlooked it. And no, there were no dimensions. It just said it fits the Lathe tubes. Well, Lathe tubes came in a number of thicknesses over the years, and I'm not saying these are Lathe tubes, but they don't fit. So I thought, well, if you're 3D printing this size, just change the dimensions to 0.650 and print another one. And I reached out to the seller and I said, hey, my bad. I have 5 tubes. I don't know that they're Lathe tubes, but your auction doesn't list a size, and you know, I should have asked before I assumed. And but he had a money-back guarantee, you know, 30-day guarantee. So I'm like, can you just print me one? You know, I'll return this one, and then you print one that's 0.650. And a couple days later, he got back to me and he said, yes. And this is somebody with like 15,000 sales. A lot of sales is where I'm going with that. And he said, yeah, sure. Place an order for another one. And in the notes section, please indicate the correct size, or you can return this one for your money back, but not both. I'm like, so you're telling me that I have to buy a second one, hoping that whoever gets it, again, high volume eBay seller, is going to print according to my requested size, a one-off? Methinks not. And I'm going to have to buy a second one, so that means I throw one away and keep the second one, hopefully that fits my tubes. A lot of hopeful there. I'm not that hopeful enough kind of person, so this goes back. I get my money back. Which brings us to this. So then I go out online and I'm looking at, you know, Etsy, and as well as eBay, anybody. So anybody with a 3D printer will be able to do this kind of work. So I found somebody who made a similar to this, and I said, hey, can you make it 650 instead of, actually I reached out and said, what are your dimensions? And his dimensions were very similar to this. And then when I said, well, can you make it for 0.650? And he said, well, why would you need that? Because of XYZ. And I said, well, I don't have XYZ, I have ABC. And then he said, well, what do you really need? And when I told him what I needed, he said, oh, even sweeter and green. He said, well, let me see what I can do for you. So he mocked these up. I'll probably order some in black too, just to stick with. But that's cool. So I will see if... I think I'll do this way. Actually, you know, I don't know which way I want to do it. Let me take all of these off. Actually, why don't I move the camera so you guys can see it on the green machine. One moment. All right, so it's not like you can actually see what I'm doing at the top, but that's not what's important right now. What's important is a method to hold this. And I think I'm going to go with the green because it kind of matches everything else. So let's see, what's the best way to go about doing this? Will it snap on? Yes, it will. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, so that just, did I get that in right? Whoops. Actually, it won't. My bad. Okay, I started sliding it down, and it's not meant to slide down because it creates havoc. The spacing in here is not meant to... Let's see what I got. other side. Okay, what did I do? I got some, okay. This stuff all is so transparent. Let's see, these got all jumbled. Okay, this one, let me snap this one in. Okay, let me snap. Okay, I think the better way to do it is one tube at a time. All right. Okay, so I just need to be careful. So the lower this goes, it's kind of funny. These are fanning out at the top, so that is not what I would do. But let me move the camera once again. All right, so there we have it. It holds them. The only downside is it can slide down. So that's a bit of a bummer. And I don't know if putting a second one, naturally the camera's in the way. So it serves its purpose. It keeps the tubes from flailing around, and when it's full of bullets, I can still turn it. I don't know what that is. Some plasticky goob. But it's better than paying for a second one of these that hopefully would get made to the right size, but no guarantee. So kind of F that. All right, more to come. All right, YouTube, we have adjusted this particular, ooh, will it clear the camera? Yes, barely. So I'll have to do two hands. But I wanted you to see the action. So all the dies are adjusted, including the bullet seating, which was quite challenging considering there are 1, 2, 3 points of potential adjustment. But I've got this sitting on my inline fab mount, flush plate mount system. You know what, let me move the camera back just a tad because that's gonna hit. I know that's gonna hit. So we have a functioning press. It's got the bullet tubes. I've got it offset right now, so if I drop, we're gonna do 5. We'll do 5 casings, 2, 4, that's 6. All of them, none of them are deprimed. So all 5 are not deprimed. Hopefully I put them in the right tube. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as soon as I rotate it to the left, it will drop into the press. So here we go. Let's see what happens. All right, all 5 of them are in the press. I've got my bullets ready. And the powder, I have the powder charge connected. I'll do a separate video actually loading a real bullet with the powder charge. I'll probably do a separate video to see how much this number 8 actually charges on a unique. It says 4.2 grains, but you know, I don't know if that's true. All right, so here we go. Nope, one fail. Bullet time. Two fail. This is probably why the press was not deemed a success by the general public. All right, so we had 2 fails because they tipped over. So we will put those back in. See if we can get a clean run. Get my bullets. So I will have to play with the priming system because I will go with an inline vertical priming system. All right, so these are looking a little too tall, so they need more fine tuning. And trust me, I have been fine tuning. This is the downside of this press. The tinkering and fine tuning, especially with, yeah, we're a hair too big, but we're getting closer. This is why we're not making bullets yet. But again, this is a functioning press, more so than it was a couple of weeks ago. And having it locked in the inline fabrication mount makes a world of difference in terms of being able to use it. So everything functions. If you'll notice, that's rotating. There we go to turn it. And actually, you know what? Since I've got this out, let me grab some unique and fill this little chamber up and see what we get. Back in a minute. Alrighty, YouTubers, we've got our powder. We've got our scale right there, which you cannot see. Maybe if I change the camera angle, scale, let's see, maybe I'll try and do, looks like the light is too bright, but I'm going to try and catch the hopper because I will fill it with some unique. And let me see what we've got here. So it's going to be too hard. So I tried doing this before. All right, so we are now full. So instead of trying to run a bullet through here, because if you don't turn it off and on correctly, and because the casing that I would be using wouldn't have a primer, powder's going to leak. It's just too much of a mess to try and do it realish. So what we're going to do is we're going to dump powder into the pan as if this cycled. So you just saw it cycle, and then we'll cycle it back. All right, that's 4.2 grains. Wow, that's I'm moderately impressed. Let me dump this in my powder. Do it again. Cycle. Let's see what we get. 3.9. Not as impressed. And I guess nothing is like the real McCoy. .9. Well, maybe 3.9 is the real McCoy. And I'm noticing that the hopper is getting a little low. So maybe with a full tube of powder, things would be different as well. I don't know. But in any case, you know, rotor technology is kind of old school. 3.9. .8. So it looks like 3.9ish, 3.8 is our I saw one granule jump. There's another one over there. 4.0. So I'm going to say we've got a 3.8 with unique on, and now that we're getting low, we'll probably get more inconsistent. 3.8. Okay, it looks like there's enough in there for one more powder throw. Let me try and, actually there's no play in the die, so getting it to move is easier said than done. Yeah, well, that's 3.7. And again, I can even see the rotor, so I'm not going to blame that one on, now we should get like next to nothing. Yeah, 3.1. It's, now it's empty-ish. Or I can see all the onesie-choosy flakes. That's that, like not even a grain. Or all right, so that's that. Obviously, a number 8 is not going to do it for me. I had a couple thoughts. Dangerous, I know. Let me. So my thoughts were, you know, there's a cool factor to this press, don't get me wrong. And this stuff is part of that cool factor. How practical is it 40 years later? Maybe not so practical. Methinks that this could be a very functional press if this was replaced with the Lee powder drum, which I happen to have right over here, because I'll be doing a video on the old versus new. The Lee powder drum, you would need to get rid of everything in back here. And I showed this on a previous video a year ago with one of my other presses. But I will demonstrate this, or at least compare this to the new version, because there's some cool things that Lee is innovating with. By using this powder drum, this becomes case activated, so you don't have to worry about this on and off switch. And Lee also has the inline bullet feeder that would replace this, because albeit this seats the bullet, whereas the inline bullet feeder does not seat the bullet to the correct height, it just sets the bullet. There's a difference there. Seating the bullet to the appropriate height versus setting the bullet on top of the casing. But then when you look at this, this is a combination seater crimper. It's not just a crimp. It's a seat crimp. In fact, it even says on there, well, it says TC, so taper crimp, but it has the stem for seating. So this effectively could seat and crimp, which I think is kind of cool, because that takes away some of the pain in the assity of dialing this in, because if you can seat and crimp with this, you adjust the die for the crimp, and then you adjust the stem for the seat. So that could be cool. That might be the win. But having this in its original format, the cool factor for me personally, is off the map. These are amazing little machines. All right, I'm not sure if more to come or not. I said I was going to make bullets, but I think people are tired of seeing my green machine videos, so I'm not sure. Later. Okie dokie, folks. Since I've talked about everything else on this press, and the press is in its final functional stage. I've showed case feeding, I've showed bullet, powder. The only thing I haven't shown on this press, the 9mm version, is the priming system. And the priming system is, if I were to say finicky, it's probably the understatement. There are multiple points for the priming. This particular screw to adjust the transfer bar for the priming rod. You've got this to adjust where this particular rod would sit, this primer rod, primer tube and blast shield. You also have this in terms of how far in this bar that feeds the primer goes into to go into the primer cup or into the primer area for the transfer bar. You've got this particular screw. Actually, this screw is what controls the primer for decap. This particular screw is what controls the transfer bar for left to right on lining with the primer station. And then this wonderful thing in the back here that is controlled by these two screws, which looks like a giant meat cleaver, is what pushes this bar forward. So there's all of that to adjust to hopefully get a primer to drop. And again, this is my aftermarket solution. Still have to do adjustment to get the original primer tray that would sit right here to drop. So what we're going to do is, this is the primer solution, the RCBS, the blast shield, the cup. So we're going to load our primers, and we'll do 10. Load the primers in this tube. Then we'll drop the tube in here to drop the primers. And then I'll show you, hopefully, 10 successful, at least, primer presentation. Not going to bother loading the primers into brass. And someone will say, well, then you really don't have it working, but that's as good as I'm going to do, and I'm going to call it done with this particular station. So what do I have here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Naturally, one of them had to drop, and a piece of fuzz. So there are my 10 primers that I'm going to put into my priming tube. 1 second, please. Just so you know that that's what's happening. So there's my 10 primers. Okay, they are in there. I'll put that on top. I will put this rod on top of the primers so they drop. And hopefully you'll hear this. There you go. All right, so now my primer rod, my push rod that I use for my Hornady is in here. And I also use it for my Dillon. So now hopefully, maybe I should move the camera because, I don't know, is that in front? Can you see that? Yes, you can see that. So hopefully, actually let me move the camera just a little bit. All right, that's a little better view. So hopefully you'll see primers. Undo this. 1 primer. And we'll use this to take the primers out. That's 1 primer. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. And we should now have an empty nothing. All right, so there's our 10 primers, and we will call priming done. More to come, I think one more video. All right, as I was setting up to do the final video of, hey, this is the finished press, I thought, let me go ahead and do one of these real. So people will be like, oh, it's not working. It's not priming. Here's a primer. I'm gonna drop that in. You probably did not hear that. I will put this on top to make sure it, okay. So we are fully situated. So that brass is in there, and we're going to see what happens. There's our primer. Brass is presented. Primes on the upstroke. I will advance because I have no powder, no bullet, and nothing to seat. But we can flare. Actually, we can go through the phaco motions. I'm not going to crimp, so I will advance that. And because we don't have a head, I don't know if it'll jump out or if it'll fall in here. Okay, and there is our primed system, our primed case. So our priming system works just fine, nice and flat, so there's no wobble. Good to go. And here is the final of the 9mm green machine sitting on top of the inline fabrication plate that was made for the green machine, with my mods to allow a bin to catch everything. So this is fully functioning and tested, a little wobbly where it's on the garage right now. Plenty of primers in here. You've seen it do all of its functions: run brass, prime, decap, resize, dropping powder. Not necessarily in brass, simply because this station is challenging at best, and it's dropping 3.7 to 3.9 grains of unique, which is much lower than what I would load for, so it has to be a different rotor. The bullet seating works fine. That has multiple points of adjustment. Here, 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 and where else? I think that's it. And this particular press, which is different than some of my other green machines, this crimp is also a cedar crimp. So I've got another way to make sure that my bullet seating is where I need it to be, because of the design of this particular die. You've seen it do primer with this particular primer system, both running consistent primers as well as priming a case. So it's run through all of its stations. This is about how I'm going to leave the press in terms of this particular solution with the little dandy. So you have the old school rotor / mechanical powder drop with, I'll call it the new school priming system, because this priming system is reliable as compared to the other priming system. And as I said, there are multiple points to fine-tune the priming. This particular screw and hex control the hole for where the decap lands. That right there. This particular screw hex controls how far the transfer bar goes to meet with the priming rod. And this, and this little lever here, cleaver, whatever, that's controlled by the two screws back here, are what allow this bar to come out just enough So that adjusts the bar so that the primer will drop accordingly into that hole. So this is a Tinker Master machine. So for somebody who wants to just drop and go, like, you know, I'll call it the Dylan, spend an afternoon, set the press up and be reloading, this is not the press for you. Where on the other hand, if you like old machines and you like tinkering and making them work and see what makes them tick, this is a great example of amazing old engineering, and I'll call it over engineering, as I've referred to previously. So the cool factor on this thing is just, as far as I'm concerned, off the map, and it works. You know, I'm not going to say flawlessly, but it works, and it's something that is 40-ish years old. 1984-ish, give or take a year, depending on, I mean, this is a 9000, so I'm going to say maybe 1984, 1985. So I'm going to go with 40 years. This is an amazing old machine. It really is. It does what it's supposed to do. But again, if you're expecting, you know, high tech, ease of use, drop and go, you know, open the box, set it up, and you're reloading. Yeah, not the system for you, because you have to know what's going on. So we are done. You're probably as done with this green machine as I am. So I'll stop playing with the handle, as I've said before, and call this a day.